Hey, this is Kevin. So I'd like to share a little bit of my insights. So I just came off of being a speaker at the Vilnius Green Tech Forum, Vilnius in Lithuania. And I was in Lithuania twice in 2018 and then did another project that was in the Baltics in 2019. I've been staying in contact with entrepreneurs there. Was real excited about being a part of today's presentation. And just because of the format, there wasn't a lot of time to be able to share different information. So if there's anyone that follows up and asks me more about what I said during that time, I just wanted to go ahead and put together a few other words, do a slightly informal video so that we could actually talk through some different ideas. The first thing is, so there were 4 points of what I wanted to say. The first is about the Biden plan. So I am by no expert, a policy expert about what President Biden is announcing. You know, he's talking about the plan he's called Build Back Better, with a big focus about $1.9 trillion being targeted at economic recovery in the face of COVID. But one of the things that's interesting is a strong focus for those of us that have come from a technology entrepreneurship background is this whole idea about how much is going to be spent on environmental justice and environmental programs dealing with carbon and green energy. And that was part of what the talk was about today. Now, the Assistant Secretary, Jonathan, that came from the State Department could actually give us more of the details of specifically what does the Biden plan say. I'm not going to purport to actually be an expert at that. That's not my area of expertise. But I think it is interesting about the signaling that's happening that from the Biden administration. Secondly, from a purely speculative, as entrepreneurs do, you know, Elon Musk just announced within the last week $100 million that he is dedicating to environmental security as well and dealing with carbon. And then the Rockefeller Foundation just announced that they're going to spend $1 billion over the next 3 years, around dealing with environmental issues as well. Specifically, what they're looking at is how to make sure that they predict around 132 million people are going to be facing poverty because of COVID. And in deploying their funds, they're looking at deploying this massive amount of funds, more than they've ever deployed before in such a short period of time, around how can they get electricity through using green methods to the underserved, specifically like how can we get sustainable, reliable power to those individuals. And it's really interesting about what this opens up for entrepreneurs. So let's go to the next step of what I was saying. The first thing is policy and what it implies. The second is technologies. What are the technologies that are going to come available that there's opportunities for us as entrepreneurs? Well, the first thing I want to say to you is there are 10 different types of innovation. And a lot of times we focus on just product innovation itself, the invention of a new device. One of the things I'd suggest is look at the 10 different types of innovation as you're looking at how you might play in this new field. Specifically, it doesn't necessarily focus just on product invention. You might look at how you can package together, or if you're an entrepreneur from a different country, a country like Lithuania, or perhaps one of the smaller countries in the world, and you're looking at the US market, you can actually look at how you can become a part of another organization's ecosystem and really clean up and create an opportunity there as well. So the idea that you have to come up with a monolithic new type of technology and then come into the US market, that I want to break that concept a little bit, because I think a lot of times we focus so much on product invention that we forget that there's 10 different areas of innovation that can drive financial success and drive impact on the world. And a simple example is you might just have a different product in a different space that gets applied into the US market. Another thing to think about as you're looking at coming from a smaller market, like a country like Lithuania or one of the other smaller markets in the world, that's actually a strength. And why is that a strength? The reason it's a strength is you're able to work through figuring out how to get something working. What's the business model? What's the technology? What's the packaging? All the different pieces. You're able to do that in the local market in a way that you couldn't do in the US market. There's just too much competition to really get a lot of times things off the ground, to get beyond what we call in the lean startup practices, the problem solution fit, or even to product market fit. How can we actually make sure that we have a problem that's worth solving? And then at the second level, how can we make sure that the product is the right product? It's a lot easier to do that in a small market. Now, you can say the small market, if I understand it right, Lithuania only has around 4 million people. What's the real opportunity there? Well, you figure it out in that smaller market, and then you're at a position where you can take it into the other market. So think about that as well as you think about the technology. The third thing I want to actually point to is 40% of those dollars that are being allocated in the Biden plan, they have stated are going to go into impact areas, that is going to the underserved. And so those of you all that know about Tech Ranch know that Tech Ranch was selected a few years ago, but it's selected in the top 3 social impact incubators in the United States. This is core to what we want to do, is drive what we call impact innovation, technology that solves human need. And these green technologies, because of what they represent, can go into the underserved. A lot of times in the adoption of technology life cycle, one of the things that we can actually see is it's the non-served and underserved markets that typically new technology can step into first, because it's largely being ignored by the incumbents, whoever the incumbents are in a product space. Because so much money is being dedicated to the underserved, 40% of these dollars are being dedicated to that. That's really interesting. Again, the thing I said earlier about the Rockefeller Foundation is very interesting as well. They're focusing so much in this impact area, which creates a bigger opportunity for entrepreneurs. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is just bridge building. Tech Ranch is here to actually build bridges. Some of you don't know because we haven't necessarily publicized it a lot. In 2019, we had 3 different bridges we did with 3 different countries. Federal government of Mexico funded a bridge between Mexico and entrepreneurs from Mexico into Texas, into Austin specifically. The national government of Italy did the same, from Italy to Texas, specifically Austin. And then the Eurasia Foundation funded a grant that allowed us to build a bridge with a region of Russia called Tumen, Russia. Part of what we're going to be doing is looking at how is it that we can help entrepreneurs from different parts of the world bridge into Austin specifically, or Texas more generally. Texas itself, if you took the I want to say country of Texas because I'm a proud Texan, but if you look at Texas alone, Texas is in the top 10 economies in the world. And here in Austin, Texas, we're connected to Austin, Dallas, Houston, El Paso, and San Antonio, which are, we have 6 of the top 20 fastest growing cities in the United States. And so as we look at bridge building, definitely consider Tech Ranch as your partner, whether you're an ecosystem that wants to connect into the United States, that is, you're running an incubator or economic development portion of some other part of the world, or you're an entrepreneur that's looking at how can we connect in. The thing I want to say is I love Silicon Valley. I spent 2 times in my career there, really cool things you can do there. But it's a little counterintuitive, but I think we're starting to see this now. Tesla just moved to Austin. Oracle moved to Austin. All these, part of the reason is it's a much more receptive market for you. And we'd like to actually support you in that process of connecting in here. Just wrapping up, the other things I didn't get to say during the course of the speech that I want to make sure I say is the one thing that's for certain with the trigger between the 2 presidents that we've had is things aren't going to stay the same in the United States. And this is an interesting opportunity for, the faster moving, startup companies to take advantage of what's happening here. Things aren't going to change. Things are changing for sure. We can just see in the last 6 days of the Biden administration that that's really happening. The second thing is impact dollars travel. That is, on investors that have money to invest, and especially now since so many more investors are starting to use an impact lens on what they do, and impact investors' money will travel much farther. The average financial investor will only send their money like within an hour and a half. You used to actually be an hour and a half away from wherever the investor lived, was how far he or she might invest their money, because they wanted to be able to stay close to home. Impact investors typically will send their dollars even farther. And so to know about that. The third thing is, during today's panel, there was a lot of focus on unicorns. What is a unicorn? A unicorn is a startup that's going to be able to grow all the way up to $1 billion. And I think unicorns are great, but I also want to make sure that I say to the entrepreneurs that are listening to this video, remember that unicorns are not the only way to make money. We've had a number of companies around TechRanch with the entrepreneur who started the company ended up walking away with $20 to $30 million out of the exit that they did. That they ended up making $20 to $30 million. It's called an early exit. In fact, there's a book called by a guy by the name of Basil called Early Exits that it really talks about this. There's nothing wrong, at least from my perspective, as an entrepreneur that wants to see other entrepreneurs be successful, for you to be looking at how you can plug into these ecosystems, take your $20 to $30 million off the table, and not just focus on unicorns. There's nothing wrong with building a unicorn, and there's also nothing wrong with looking at a much smaller opportunity that then empowers you as an entrepreneur to become an investor, to make lots of other angel investments into your fellow brethren from either your hometown or wherever you might be. Because part of my focus and my concern as an entrepreneur that supports entrepreneurs is we want to make sure that we're getting as many entrepreneurs into the game and creating as much success as possible. And that does not just mean building unicorns. It also means setting up situations where you as the entrepreneur that founds the company, gets $20 to $30 million in your pocket to be able to go forward and pay it forward into building other companies and building a stronger ecosystem in your part of the world. So with that, totally enjoyed being a part of the presentation. I'm looking forward to future opportunities to work with Lithuanian entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs around the world. And we'll be doing some projects in Lithuania during the May timeframe for the economics conference that's happening at the beginning of May. So I look forward to working with you more, and let me know if you have questions. Thank you.